call the meeting to order. I would ask at this time if there are any additions to the agenda,
I have one. In-camera meeting after this.
in-camera item. Any other additions this evening? Okay, I would ask for an approval of the agenda with the one amendment.
Move to approve as amended.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? We have approved the agenda with the one amendment. The first item is town maintenance and grass cutting. Okay, who would like to start that item?
Deputy Mayor, I think. What's his
Did you
name
add
up
this
there?
one, Deputy Mayor?
My name, oh, I can mention something here, yeah.
Over to you then.
Over to me. The other day I made a phone call to Chief Administrating Officer and asked if, no, I didn't, sorry, I get this correct. I get this story straight. I didn't know it was me that was going to be speaking first.
Okay.
I think there was an email that went around on the weekend. I think that's how it started.
2 weekends ago.
2 weekends ago, and then I put my 2 cents into the email, and I said, maybe we should call a meeting on this. And Chief Administrating Officer said that maybe Gordy should get in touch with Mr. McDougall and discuss it. And Gordy did call me the next day, and himself. And I went down, I called a couple other councilors, see if they wanted to go, and he did meet me down at Sunset Park.
I'm a little offended you didn't call me.
Well, you were away, I think you were in Germany. I don't know if you got back yet from Germany.
No, I've been home for the last.
Oh my God, I missed that. But anyway, we did meet, and I saw some of the properties down that I was a little concerned about. And after that, I thought it was a good meeting. After that, I met with Mr. Doyle again. And I asked Mr. Doyle, I don't know if he did or didn't, I said if he had a minute, could he drive from Prince Street, across town, over to Pitt, go across Pitt onto Queen, drive over to Queen, and go down to the Granville Street and come back Granville Street, back to Prince Street Park again, right where you were, just make the loop. I don't know if Mr. Doyle had a chance to do that or not. But anyway, I drove it a few times since then to see if there's a couple of little changes, I say. But I know how, we'll get into my history lesson now, I guess. It's the time for the history lesson. This is an old history lesson because our forefathers came down to Port Hawkesbury because one of the things that they enjoyed and loved from what I was straight against. The last number of years, we could drive down Granville Street and you could look at the Strait of Cancer just like picturesque. It wasn't a dark room. Now you can't see it any places along where we used to walk. Go look at the Strait of Cancer. You used to look up at the causeway, you can't see the causeway anymore. That was all cleaned, all nice on the left-hand side. That's that part of the grass cutting and maintenance, town maintenance. If you go across where I sit, Prince Street and across town, that's just the one street. There's spots at the end where I think somebody might have cut some of it today or yesterday, where you got to be careful sneaking your head out on the highway with the bulk trucks coming when I go to work, because you can't see left on Granville Street coming out on Queen Street. And the sidewalks, there's some spots over there you can't see the sidewalks with the grass growing up on the sidewalks. On both sides of the sidewalks, on the house side and some of them, but mostly on the town side, I call it, but maybe it's not. This is just one street now. It's despicable in my mind. You go down out the Crandall Road, the old Crandall Road, Pine Ridge now, from John Campbell's wife was out there last week, taking the mud and that, putting it back in her driveway, because the ditches that are supposed that we always kept clean coming down that road right to the brook is all full of bushes and weeds. The water's coming in, the water's not going down through the culverts like it always did down into the brook. It's all over the place. I know we had a couple of major storms, I'll be the first to say it, but that's not clean. There's trees in there now that high. So I guess my concern is that, and Prince Street Park, that goes without saying. I was told that we said we weren't going to deal with that. My opinion, if I said I wasn't going to deal with that this year, it was with students on pushing lawnmowers up that hill. Surely to God, there's people in Nova Scotia and Cape Breton that can clean that hill if we hired them without students doing it. And so I guess that's my beef. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to it, but I'd just like to know if there's any answers. And I don't want excuses, and I don't want reasons. Going forward, I think it should be done. There's a lot of citizens asking questions. I know, so I don't need myself, but other councillors also. That's my beef. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor.
Yeah, so Deputy Mayor, it was myself, as you recall, that did send an email out, I guess,
Okay, I just couldn't look up.
2 weeks ago. And there were a couple issues that I identified in the email. And one was, I was wondering about the state of 2 seasonal workers that we had agreed to hire this summer as part of their budgetary process. And the reason we were hiring 2 seasonal workers was to supplement the students in being able to, summer student employees, to address the mowing in town, the garbage issues, with some particular emphasis, I think, on the waterfront and around the rec fields. And so I didn't know what the status was, so that was the first question. And I did get a reply from Mr. Doyle advising that they had advertised and had not had any success in terms of applications for those 2 positions. But I think at that same time, if I recall, he had indicated, Mr. Doyle had indicated that there was somebody that they were reaching out to. And my understanding since early today is that they've hired, I believe, 2 positions, or 2 people in those positions. I think all of council felt it was very important to have these additional staff, because we do on a regular basis get complaints from people in the community about grass and about garbage, and I think we were all in favor of hiring those 2 seasonal workers. And I did just mention in particular two spots, and Deputy Mayor's mentioned a couple of areas. And there's a lot of property in town. There's a lot of grass that has to be cut. There's no question about that. And I do see the students going full out every day through the day, and they're covering a lot of ground in the community. One area that stands out to me, and you know, how significant it is, it's significant enough that I think it should be looked after, is if the town has made an effort to have trees planted along Reeve Street, and that's part of the Reeve Street project, to have that beautification done. There are trees that are down the end of Reeve Street toward the highway number 4, between the carriage house and the lights, that it's not being cut around those trees. It's just, it's the need of a whippersnapper, and just to beautify it, to clean it up. And there's another area that's a bench that's down at the end of the former TD Bank building as you head on to the AT trail to go to the nautical school. That area always seems to be left overgrown. So those were 2 in particular, but I have a list of other issues. But I will say today, in preparation for coming to this meeting tonight, because this was being put on the agenda, I took a drive around town today, and I must say, first of all, I'm going to make a comment about the Pocket Park on McSween Street in the corner at McSween and Granville. There's been just a fantastic job in rejuvenating that park. Councilor Ivor was involved with the work there, and Paula Davis, and it was the water. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor McIver, that's the work initiative of the Waterfront Development Committee, I believe, the advisory committee. So that I mean, it's like a brand new installation. It's just,
great.
like I feel very proud to see that. And I guess before I got on council, I used to see these issues in town about things not being looked after and cleaned up. And my refrain has always been, look, we only have so many months of spring and summer, and we have a lot more of winter time. But we want people to enjoy the community, and we need to make the effort to maintain it. So with that said, aside from the park, I did take a drive today around town, and I must tell you that I never saw it look so good as I did today. There was snipping that was done today and maybe toward the end of last week that I hadn't seen done before. One spot that just stood out today was the berm over at the recreation field that seemed to always be grown up, but today I think that got cut this morning, and that whole area got cut. And just in general around town, it just to me looks so much better today. I couldn't believe it. And I don't know why that is. How come that happened today? But I would appreciate, or I think we all would, to see that carry on going forward, because it really was really noticeable. So anyhow, those are my comments. I have other issues, but I'm not going to sit here and take time to go through the different things. I certainly can address those with Mr. Doyle after another time.
Councillor McIver or O'Coin, do you have comments?
Through you, Your Worship. I have pretty much the same concerns, and I met with Gordy and the deputy mayor that day down at the park, and there is a lot more that can be done there to make it more, I guess, appealing. It is hard to see the street all along Granville Street, where there's some young trees coming up close to the road and grass and the elephant ears. There's a lot of streets that are the same, that have a lot of bush coming out over the curbs. The deputy mayor and I went down one street, Queen, I think, and you would have to come off the sidewalk and walk probably 60 feet to go around the bushes. I have concerns. We were told that we were going to have maybe some wildflower put on the hill as Prince Street Park, which I agree with, but I was then told that it wouldn't work. So if it doesn't work, I think it should be moved. We get complaints, I call it King Park. Every year it's the same thing, trying to get that mowed. And I think council maybe should sit and set a schedule up. Like I know on the farm, my own, you mow 2 or 3 times a year. Like earlier in the spring, maybe in July, and maybe October or late September. That keeps everything down. Looks good. I have concerns, and I've said it before, that we keep creating new areas and we have a very hard time looking after what we have. One of the concerns is our transportation lanes that we put in, the new ones. Nature will recover very quickly, and they will come up over the pavement. Grass will fold itself over pretty quick. And it's noticeable along Reeve Street, down at the bottom by J.D. McLean. Grass is high up and along there, and then last year, the year before, I think they had a trail cleanup. They did a fantastic job. It really looked good, and it could be done again. I did talk to Mr. McMillan about a piece of equipment, I think a frail mower that I don't have a picture of it, but I left my phone home. But it has, it's like almost like an excavator, but it has like a bush hog on the end of it. It fits our trackless that we already had. And it'd be quite capable of doing all our walkways and the banks and everything. Wherever you could put the machine in, it can reach over. And I don't know exactly what the reach would be. It might be 8 feet or 10 feet, whatever's on the arm. But if you're along the side of the road, it'll go 10 feet in and it'll clean it. It's year after year since I've been in council. I mean, we've been always talking about keeping stuff clean. The last 6-8 years on council, it was never really a big deal before. It was always done. We had more students at the time. But I guess it would be a council's decision whether or not they want to keep these grass areas clean and mowed. Elephant ears down, like Granville Street, at the head of it. We have tourists coming in, all the big rocks from Boulder Park.
It's not called that.
Sunset Park, are over in Prince Street Park, and you can't even see them. The grass is growing up over them. Like, that should be cleaned up. The elephant ears all around the pumping station, across the road from that, it's full of elephant ears. It's just not very pleasing for a tourist to drive in, or anyone to drive into town, come on Granville Street. It's I don't know, kind of, how do you put it, dog patchy. And myself personally, I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs about the piece of equipment that Jason and I discussed, but if that piece of equipment was capable of doing everything that council wanted, I would have no problem in moving a motion to purchase that piece of equipment. And maybe once or twice a year, go around town and take all that stuff down. That would be up to council. But I do know that it has to be addressed.
Do you have a like what's the ballpark cost on one of those? It's an extension for the trackless.
Yes, I don't have a ballpark figure.
Jason's looking it up now.
It's approximately $50,000.
Okay.
So it goes on the trackless. There's an extra set of wheels that have to go around. You have to stabilize the machine first before it goes on. There's a boom that's attached.
So are we debating the motion here?
Would you like to put that motion on, or do we want to get more information for our September meeting?
It would be council, I guess council.
Summer will be over.
If it,
Summer's almost
like I
over.
said, Jason did a lot of the homework on it, like,
Okay.
and showed it to me. Maybe
Do you want to give
Jason
us,
would like to speak on it.
can you give us a little bit more information, Jason?
Sure.
But if it was capable of doing everything that we want it to do, like the sides of the banks, some of the ditches, along the walkways, then I don't have any problem with the motion, if council wants to go in that direction.
It's called a boom flail mower. It is an attachment for our municipal trackless brand. And essentially what it does is allows you to reach over guardrails and at the back slope of ditches and bottom of ditches and slopes as Councilor McIver described. You can also, I don't know the exact specs off the top of my head, but you can reach up fairly high with this thing as well. And kind of,
So down below, or adjust it down or up?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like an excavator arm that's mounted to the side of the vehicle.
Okay.
With like a mulching head.
Right.
At the end. So.
And would it actually would the trackless fit along the AT trail as well? I know Mark had mentioned.
Yes. Yeah, we use the trackless to plow the AT trail a lot.
Okay.
But like Terry noted, it does require a stabilizing set of tires added to the machine as well. It's quite costly. It's an expensive attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And what spurred me investigating this a little bit was the request for Public Works to look at clearing grass from road shoulders along Spruce Street and some of the ditches and stuff.
This would make faster work of it.
It would make, yeah, it was an option that I came up with to maybe look at doing some of our ditch areas more efficiently.
Through you, your worship, maybe, Jason, if you have that little clip that you sent me, maybe send it to Terry, you could put it up and council would get an idea exactly what the machine will do.
I guess, through you, your worship, if I may, I know there's no motion, but if I have to make a second, or I'll second it to discuss this, because
Sure.
we're discussing something.
Did you want to make that a motion?
I would move.
And I'll
Okay,
second
then
it.
second it. Discussion.
On the question, my first question would be, I know the students were brought up here and I don't think it's the students' fault that what I'm talking about, it's definitely not their fault that this is, and I don't know whose job it is myself, and somebody asked me, I don't know if it's a recreation job or if it's Works Department job. I know back historically again, when we hired people on, we had Dan, Willie, and Angus here. They did a lot of the streets. They were out in the streets. They did the work on the streets. The students were hired for the ball fields and the soccer fields and the playgrounds. They weren't out in any streets doing mowing or whippersnipping on streets. And the second question would be, who would operate this machine if we bought it? Am I going to be able to go and operate it, or is there somebody going to be specific to operate that?
Okay, we'll let Terry answer your two questions.
Should that be Terry to answer?
Well, first off, it's all about priorities, right? So what you've talked about, most of the issues that are brought up are public works responsibility. So if it's around a road, it's a public works responsibility. If you can't see around a corner, that's a public works responsibility. If you're going down Crandall Road or Pine Ridge in that ditching is a public works responsibility. So around Spruce, all of the major issues that you've talked about are public works issues. The elephant ears that have grown up, we spent almost a week removing that with a backhoe approximately 2 years ago, closed the road off, did that. They're worse than they were before. There's no real good solution to that. But you know, if you want to continue to mow those down, that is something that could be considered. If you're looking at the council investing $50,000, then you have to take that labor away. So if you look at a number of years ago, I don't think we've ever done the amount of sidewalk that we used to do. I think if you look at a number of years ago, you never did the amount of patching and paving that we do right now. So from my perspective, in looking at what Ocean Paving did and what our Public Works was doing a number of years ago, that just didn't happen. So we have pivoted. Public Works has taken on more other work. So maybe some of the work that was done in the past is now, maybe that's something's got to happen, right? So if you take on some work, then there's other work that's not going to happen, and maybe that's what's occurred. I'm not sure how the ditching was done before. We don't have equipment to do ditching. So if because a backhoe, a backhoe has stabilizers that go out and you dig. You need an excavator to do ditching, and that's something we've never had. So not certain. If we buy this piece of equipment, then we're going to have to dedicate labor to that. So if that labor is dedicated from Public Works, then that labor is not doing something else as well. So you got to consider the cost of the equipment and the cost of the labor as well. Yeah. The issue of labor is a huge one. If we talk about the improvement over the last couple of weeks, that was because we were finally able to get a couple of more employees. So instead of having 2 people full-time and a third that was whippersnipping, we added 2 more. We almost increased by 50%. So yeah, so we've seen an increase in the amount of grass that we're able to trim and cut. There's no question. That's really what that's about. So you know, if it's council's decision to buy a piece of equipment, I would like to for you to fully consider that and to get all the information and to look at what we have and the true cost of doing that work. But there's issues around ditching now too, especially with the weather that we're experiencing. That's something that we have to concentrate on. There's no question about that. But it's more than just cutting some trees. There's some real work that has to be done on that side.
And this piece of equipment is not a piece of equipment that's used every day. Like it's not a labor, it's, you don't put a person on the machine every day doing it. You might do it
10 days.
once or twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, do the sides of your roads, do over your banks, do your active transportation lanes, and then you'd park it.
Just your worship, through you, if I may. Just on Terry's comments there, I don't understand how, I'm trying to get it in my head how it was done for all those years. I lived there, in that house, and it was always a drain, there, the water always ran down the road. And there's a culvert, I remember them putting the culvert in, and my father and mother paving the driveway. And never had an issue. Now it's all grown, the water's going every way. I don't know. Somebody must have been doing it. Unless Douglas McDonald might did it with his horse.
That's too far back.
I think we had more employees at that time too.
You went too far.
I might do it.
But
Sorry.
also through you, your worship,
We're gonna bring you up a decade or two back into the future. Thank you.
through you, your worship,
Sure.
and also, Councilman Corey mentioned the Hawk Park. I did initiate that through Mr. McMillan, through the Works Department, to have them for a day. And they did a tremendous job. And if anybody was down the street, it really makes the street look really good. And I actually spoke with Mike Trainer from Alliant, and he's going to remove the tree that's right on the wires there close to the road. And actually the neighbor yesterday, my neighbor, is taking a lot of pride in his property, was out sitting on the sidewalk, edging the sidewalk. So people do care, they take pride in it. And the elephant ears that were removed by the Works Department, and they took down actually a tree that was pretty well gone with the permission of the landowner. And I agreed, and I will, because I do it, the street with my lawn tractor, that you can mow elephant ears. You just don't let them get too hot, like every week or 2 weeks. I'll run my mower down through there, and that'll keep it nice. And that's why I say about a piece of equipment all around town. Like, once you get them down, you can keep them down 2 or 3 times a year. So, but very appreciative of the Works Department, and actually the following day they dug out the rest of the wall, and they put gravel all in behind the wall as Terry requested, and just needs to be cleaned up a little bit now, and in the back we'll do a lot of handwork in there. But all that stuff makes such an improvement, and people notice it. And that's why council gets so many complaints, is that when it's done, it looks really nice and people notice it.
Your worship, if I may.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilman MacGyver, I was down there also, and I asked you what was going on, and I remember, and Paula Davis was did a lot of work on this. She was on our waterfront. When I asked, I said, that's good. I asked the cost. The guy was down there hydroblasting.
Yeah.
He was hydroblasting all the wood and everything. I said the cost. I got the cost and that. And you're saying how great that looks and everything. It is absolutely great. And I was down there with Johnny Backhoe, and he was down there, and what a great job he did on the back. And again, I compliment the Works Department on that also. But in saying that, if we could put a little effort, if we could put that effort into that, from that street up to the park, up to Sunset Park, and try on the left side, and where we can see the causeway and see the Strait of Cancer, how beautiful it is, that would make that whole downtown Granville Street area, I call it downtown, but the Granville Street area, that much appealing to not only the citizens there, but the young man and young gentleman and young lady that was down at the Prince Street Park the day Mark and I were there. They were coming from, they were gonna go around the trail, and I asked him, how did you get down? He was out there with a metal detector in the middle of the field, and he struck some metal, and he was starting to dig. So Mark and I went over and said, you better not dig there, but you're gonna get pretty stinky, because this is the old solar plant here that you're digging on. And I asked him, I said, how did you get here? Oh, we just seen this spot. He said, we went up to Dairy Queen and got some food, and we said, we'll come back and we'll just sit here. It's nice, it's how beautiful it is, you can see. But that whole area, if you can, from the park, from the little park, where we sang, to the other part, to Sunset Park, if that was done, it would look a lot better, I think.
Councillor Coyne, did you wanna? I wanna make sure he has a,
I think I've said enough.
all right.
Does it change?
Councillor McCord.
Your Worship, the question I would have is, I think to be able to obtain this type of equipment would be very, very beneficial. Would it not be something that would be possible to rent? Like, could we rent that this summer with a view, because it's $50,000, and not to say it's not worthwhile to do that, but to look at that when we deal with we could deal with it if the motion was passed, but if we would look at maybe the rental in the interim, see what the rental costs would be, and to go that route first, and look forward to having this conversation further, maybe through budget talks.
I think the motion was to look at procuring, so whether that's through purchase or rent, I think it still could be.
Yeah, I don't know that if you could rent a trackless, I'm not sure. Maybe.
I'm not certain if they rent attachments like that. That's certainly something I can look into.
Through your worship, even if we rented the attachment, we would still have to stabilize our trackless.
Yeah.
Yes. You would.
Anyway, there's a motion on the floor.
There is. Any other discussion?
Your worship, if
Sure.
we're looking at a major
Please do.
purchase, should we be asking if the finances are there to support that?
Yes,
Or
we
what the
should.
impact of that purchase would be?
Erin, did you wanna?
I just think, yeah, sure, thank you for your worship. This is typically something that you would want to have considerable consideration around. It's a pretty significant purchase. I mean, we had much longer conversations around purchases that were much smaller during our budget deliberations. I don't know what the other options may be for, clearing out excess alders and there may be other contracting options that could be available that could get the same amount of work done without a significant purchase and without tying up resources that we know are have been pulled in many different directions over this summer season. For me, I would like to have an option to consider what the options are for attaining the results that council is asking about today. And continuing those, as regrowth happens, as opposed to, passing a motion for a $50,000+ item, where, we don't even have all the information around it. So that would be my preference. I don't have enough information right now to consider this appropriately from a financial perspective.
Could an amendment be?
I could make an
considered
amendment to
explore
motion.
options.
either to purchase or to explore the cost of a contractor doing identified areas 3 times a year. If you look at that crisis and maybe come back to council.
with whatever options may be available.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need a seconder for the amendment.
I'd second it.
Okay, so we have an amended motion on the floor. Any other discussion on the amendment, or if you're prepared, you can call the question.
I do have a question.
Sure. On the amendment?
Yes. What time frame are we looking at to get this information brought back to us?
Well, my opinion would be at least a couple of weeks. We'd like to see it done at least once this year, get it cleaned up this year for the fall.
So are we looking for an answer in the September meeting, or are we gonna come back here at the end of August for another meeting?
Well, we're doing I guess we discussed quite a bit which way we're gonna go, either purchase or, so if we had the information even by email or phone poll, if we're making the motion now,
An email can weigh
Sure.
in for council
within
in
the
terms
next
of preferred
week or two.
options. Yeah, I guess we're all in agreement in terms of we need a solution, and then we can agree on whatever those options are presented from staff.
Right.
Okay, so any other discussion or questions on the amended motion,
Could
the
you-
amendment?
Can somebody read me the amended motion? Or
Burke just,
just, because there's two parts to that amended motion, I think.
I amended, the first motion was to purchase.
No, I understand that part. The
The
amended
amendment
motion
was to purchase or
the,
rental of a contractor, pricing of a contractor, doing the
So that's
identified
two different
areas.
things. If you're getting a contractor, then you're not having anything to do with the rental.
I think he's outlined potential options. We
Right.
just have to come forward with some
There's no
options.
rental, because personally, I don't think you could rent that piece of equipment anyway.
Well, if you're a contractor, then you wouldn't be buying it either.
No, but if it comes back that we can get a contractor and the price for 3 times a year for the identified areas.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if that's good
I'm
with all
fine
the
with that.
chemicals.
I guess my question is, if we can get a contractor 2 or 3 times a year that are gonna do these identified areas, then buying the piece of equipment is out the window. Okay, because I just want to get that straight on the amended motion.
Correct.
Because it's a possibility that the amended motion is going to defeat the main motion.
I think the amendment was to look at potential options, and one of those options could be to purchase the equipment. So it's
yes,
not
the-
necessarily off
the
the
option
table.
to
Staff
purchase.
is gonna bring us with all of the options available to achieve the desired result.
I'll come back with a contractor, then we're not buying.
Whether,
Like,
yeah.
if,
whatever option is economical and fast.
right, Terry will ask Jason probably to research it, look for a contractor, get a price 3 times a year, identify the areas.
Yep.
If the cost comes back and it's not feasible,
Yep.
then you might want to look at purchasing, and that's why.
So I guess my
I
question
hear you.
to that is when are we getting together to decide what areas we want done?
I think Granville Street was identified today, as well as some of the side streets, particularly up by Pine Ridge and Tamarack Drive.
Yeah, but if we're gonna be getting a contractor to do the desired areas,
There'll be,
we should all have a say.
you put your say in,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, but
Well, contractor,
What was the most,
hopefully
2
if
weeks?
there's a contractor that can do the work that we want done, he's going to be able to do a lot of it.
That's right.
Or we buy the piece of equipment.
Okay, so I just want to review this for Councillor McIver. So the first motion was to purchase the extension. The amendment was to have staff come back with options to achieve clearing problem areas 3 times per year. But purchasing that extension could be one of the options that are presented.
correct,
Okay, so do I have that correct?
yes.
Okay,
Very
that's
good.
the language.
Yep, thank you. He seconded it.
Is there any other questions? Like, well, it's been moved and seconded.
Question.
Question has been called for the amendment on the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying
Aye.
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 Aye, contrary minded. Okay, so that's the amendment. So the main motion now is to have staff come back with options to achieve clearing problem areas 3 times per year.
That's the amended motion.
That's the amendment, but purchasing being one of potential options.
Yep.
Could be purchasing, it could be a contract, it could be
Rental.
rental.
Yep.
We don't know what those options are. We're gonna have staff come back. So we do have a main motion now. Any discussion on the main motion? Okay, if you're ready, you can call the question.
Question.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, motion is approved. Any other business with regard to this agenda item? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is Housing Accelerator Fund.
Yeah, so this program was identified by council or Councilman Corey as an opportunity possibly for the town of Roxbury. So the Housing Accelerator Fund is a federal fund that's administered by CMHC. And we do see there's some indication that some municipalities are applying for this. To get some backup, this is due on Friday. The municipalities that are putting in applications have been working on this for months before the application process went out. It's very, very complicated. I think there's numerous pages on this. It asks to identify an action plan. The action plan in itself is significant. The action plan has to include 5 initiatives. First thing, we're a small rural or northern indigenous community stream. So what I'm saying is it's a very challenging program and there's very strict follow-up processes to it. We're not in a position to be able to move, in my opinion, we're not in a position to be able to move forward with this stream. We are advised by the province that in the fall, there's going to be a provincial initiative come forward and we'll be awaiting that and hopefully be able to see some benefit from that. But certainly aware of this, and this is not a one-year program, it's over a number of years. So if we may be able to get ourselves in a position that we're able to move forward with this in the future, but not at this point in time.
Just for information, Terry, so we are looking at a potential project through a potentially different funding stream with the partnership that we had with the Chamber of Commerce and New Dawn. And there is still potential housing projects that we can be pursuing.
So the initiative is with New Dawn Enterprises in the town of Roxbury, and we have a commitment from New Dawn to work with us. No, and so this was brought forward to New Dawn to see if there's opportunities, and they indicated that no, that it didn't work with
that particular project
what they wanted to, but they're looking at 2 initiatives within the town of Roxbury to help us move the housing file forward.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't the same thing. So that project's still going.
Yes.
Potentially. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for Terry or comments? Okay, so we have items from in camera.
So from in camera, that the town of Port Hawkesbury approved entering into a purchase and sale agreement for land as presented in camera.
What is the wishes of council?
I'll move the motion.
Okay, the motion has been moved by Councillor Coyne. Do we have a seconder?
Second the motion.
Okay, Deputy Mayor has seconded the motion. Any discussion on the motion?
Question.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. Any other items?
That's also from camera, that the amending agreement, or it should be amended agreement of the airport operating agreement as reviewed in camera be approved.
Okay, what is the wishes of council?
I'd move.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
I think that
I'll
the
second.
Deputy Mayor beat you to that. Any discussion on the motion?
Question.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is approved. Any other items, Terry?
No, that's all from camera.
Okay, so under approved additions, we do have a couple of items that we were unable to finish in our in-camera meeting just prior to this public meeting. So we will Would council wish to adjourn this public meeting first and then have a public, in-camera meeting
Yes.
afterwards with maybe like a 5-minute break? Okay. So we will complete our in-camera meeting. At this time, I would ask for a motion of adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Whoever can stay